I am Vero, and this is Modern Immigrant. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. As every Wednesday, we're here bringing you a new immigration story. And before we start and I introduce my guest, I want to remind you of our Instagram account at Modern Immigrant, where we're always sharing information about the guests, about the episodes, and about our immigration experiences. You can also check our website, modernimmigrant.com, where you can find all the information like the store we have, the amazing merch that we have, the immigrant causes that we're supporting, and also our book club. Okay, so today Raphael is with us, and I'm really excited because this was such an amazing interview and such an amazing conversation that I had that I can't wait for you to listen to it. Raphael is an immigrant and he's also a doctor. He's also the writer of his memoir, Can't Let Go, which I have right here. I recently received this copy and I'm really excited. I started reading it and it's just beautiful. A journey from the heart of Africa to America. We're going to talk about his memoir. We're going to talk about his immigration from the Democratic Republic of Congo to the US about 50 years ago. We talk about all the different immigration journeys, all the different immigration experiences that he has experienced over the last years, all the learnings, and there's so much information of things that you're gonna really appreciate if you're an immigrant, and even if you're not an immigrant. I think this episode, it's gonna inspire you, teach you, and just connect you with a wonderful story. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. We are on all the podcast platforms, so don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to let us know what's your favorite part of this episode and to connect. If you check the links in the description, you'll find information on where to get Raphael's book and also where to support his organization. So thank you so much for being here and enjoy this episode. Remember that if you want to make donations to this podcast to support production, you can check out buymeacoffee.com/modernimmigrant. Any donation is really, really appreciated and it helps us to keep going. Thank you so much for the ones that are always there supporting. So today we have Raphael with us here in Modern Immigrant, and I want to say welcome. I'm so excited that you're here.
I want to thank you and thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always exciting to explore immigration stories, and I can't wait to explore yours. And I think a great point to start will be asking you, when did your immigration journey start and from where to where?
Well, was barely 18, 17 and a half to be exact, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's a country that a lot of people know under different names. It used to be called the Belgian Congo because it was a Belgian colony. From there, it became independent in 1960, and it was referred to as Congo Leopoldville or Congo Kinshasa from the capital, and distinguishing it from the other Congo because there's also a Congo Brazzaville.
Oh.
A lot of people, I'm sure, would relate to it as Zaire.
Mm-hmm.
Zaire is where they had the rumble in the jungle with Muhammad Ali. I don't know if that means anything to you.
It does, but a little bit, yeah.
That was Zaire for a couple of decades, and it's been the Democratic Republic of Congo since 1997. That's where I'm from.
Okay.
Left there about 50 years ago.
Wow. And you left as a teenager, which I know it always brings, a specific story, I feel, at that age, the arriving to a new country. Where specifically did you arrive in the US, and what are some things that you remember from that experience of, being new immigrant in the US?
One of the things that I really remember is something that I don't remember very well. I'll explain that.
Okay, I like that.
As I said, at 17, I just finished secondary school. Had an admission at Amherst College, Amherst in Massachusetts. And I didn't even wait for the graduation ceremony or the commencement, whatever. I took off and was very excited. I mean, it was the first time I was overseas.
Right.
And then I got on the plane in Brussels on my way to New York, and I freaked out. I freaked out because I got on the plane, and as soon as I sat down, I heard these people speaking. They were speaking English, of course, American English. And I thought I could understand a little bit of English, but I just couldn't. And when I sat down and I said, whoa, what am I getting into? So I remember that incident and the panic, but I don't remember the rest of the trip because I was so panicked and I was so um, I was out of it. I learned later that I was having a panic attack because I just all of a sudden I realized I'm going somewhere by myself. I don't understand what they're saying. I don't speak the language, and it was frightening. So that
Wow.
I remember that part of the experience, and it stuck with me. So I was on the way from there to Georgetown University in Washington. That's where I went to the English Language Institute.
Okay.
I had to take some English classes for a couple of months before I started school at Amherst College. So
Interesting. It
my
is.
first,
Yeah.
I don't remember being in New York City at all. We
Wow.
landed at JFK, but I don't remember that. I barely remember flying from JFK to Washington, D.C. But once we got there, I met some students who were in the same boat that I was, and I started feeling a little more comfortable. Started the English classes, and and the rest is history.
Yeah. I love that introduction, and I love hearing how we get to remember those experiences more as a feeling, right? Like you remember
Yes,
what you felt.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I felt terrible because I was afraid not so much of not surviving or anything, but my purpose, my reason for coming here was to go to school and study, get my degree. And I was telling myself, well, how am I going to do this if I can't even understand what they're saying? I can't even speak.
I,
Back in secondary school, I mean, we did take some English classes. I mean, we probably had one or two. We would say good morning.
right.
How are you today?
But that's so different from like
It was
learning in a
very,
university.
very different. And so I was afraid. I had a lot of ideas going through my head. What if I don't make it? What if I have to go back? How am I going to explain this? And so yeah, I think it was all of those questions I started asking myself in that very second. And I think that was the thing that was frightening.
Definitely, definitely. You're really brave for taking on that journey by yourself. And I also hear that it sounds like finding some connections and some people along the way was helpful, especially those first years as a student. How was that connecting with other maybe immigrants, other international students? Like, did that help to have support?
Extremely, extremely important, extremely useful.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, the I probably just have to tell you that I came here with the help of an organization called the African American Institute, and they were that's an organization that was sponsoring some undergrad as well as graduate students to come to the U.S., get degrees, hopefully go back. And so I was not the only student. So when I got to DC, I got to meet some of the other students that were under the sponsorship. There were maybe, I would say, about half a dozen of us. There were students from Tunisia, Algeria, Ivory Coast. Most of these were French-speaking students because we were essentially in the same boat. So meeting them, comparing notes, was actually it was helpful in a couple of different ways. One was that, okay, I realized I'm not the only one in this boat. And, telling myself, well, if this guy can do it, I certainly can. I also can. And also just the fact that when we were together, we could compare notes a little bit, reminisce a little bit. And because even though we were from different countries, we still had a lot of in common.
100%.
And so we, could speak French a little bit and then de-stress, because when you're learning a new language and you're trying to speak it and understand its work, it's mentally taxing. So it was easy to be able to just de-stress a little bit, move back, speak a little French, talk about Africa, and listen to some music, good music. And so that was very, very helpful. And the other thing that was also very helpful at the very beginning was that at the time that I came at the end of June, June 1970. The independence of the Congo is June 30th. So just a few days after I arrived to Washington, they had an independence celebration at the embassy in Washington, and they invited a few people. So I'm not exactly sure how I found out about it, but somehow I borrowed a jacket. I didn't have a suit or nothing. I borrowed a jacket from my roommate from Tunisia. I put on my jacket and my white shirt, and found my way to the reception. So very early, I got to meet some people from the Congo, because they are mostly Congolese who were invited there. I mean, there were obviously a lot of other people, but there were a lot of Congolese as well at the function. So we get to interact a little bit, and some of them had been here for a while, for quite a while, and that helped. That helped tremendously, because again, as I said, feeling and knowing that yes, there are people who came from the same background, and they seem to be doing pretty well. They seem to be doing well. So that was reassuring for me, and
Definitely.
very, very helpful. Very helpful.
Thank you for speaking on this. And I think that's something that all immigrants can relate to, having someone there, seeing someone succeeding and also failing, and understanding that that's going to be part of the process, and we can get up and continue again. I would love to ask you, in this journey, you have been here already for many years, you have a whole life in the USA. So I'm sure there were like different stages, right? Like where you felt differently in terms of missing home, wanting to go back, creating a new home for you here. So can you speak a little bit on those different parts and different stages of an immigration journey, and based on your experience, of course?
Yes. Yeah, my experience may be a little bit different. At least the first third, I would say, would be a little bit different than a lot of the immigrants, especially the current crop of immigrants that we're getting. Because as I mentioned, when I came, and a lot of people, I think, in that generation, we came to study, and we came with the idea of going back. So it wasn't really a situation where we're eager to go to the US and stay there and make a life there. So my experiences were a little bit different. So even though I had all of the issues that some of those we've mentioned, being isolated, being by myself, because once I left DC, I was the only Congolese at Amherst. When I got to Rochester, I was the only Congolese in Rochester, and there were just a few Africans. So even though I had all of those issues, and even though I didn't see my family for 8 years, I mean, when I came here, I didn't go back for 8 years. I always had that something that was telling me, okay, it's going to be all right. This is going to be for a while. You're going to be able to go back. So and that helped me in a way to deal with some of the issues that a lot of people may experience, being separated, being away, especially if you know that this is it and this is for a lifetime. So things changed a little bit for me because I got in a situation where I couldn't go back because things had gotten so bad in the Congo. If you know something about the history of the Congo, and I told you a little bit about the changes in names, and then that's all of that is related to instability, wars, I mean, all kinds of things, all kinds of problems. So a lot of people, including some members of my family, were leaving. They wanted to get out and they were leaving, and they absolutely categorically told me, listen, you don't come back. You don't come back. So I couldn't go back. I mean, I did go back to visit, but I couldn't stay. When I finished my residency, looking for a job, I couldn't find one. As I said, those who had jobs there, some of them were not getting paid, so they were leaving. So I couldn't go. So it's almost like for a second time, I was going through the same emotional experiences of, okay, I'm going to be separated. Now it's going to be like for a long, long time. But I was a little bit better equipped because I already had some friends here. And so it wasn't as bad, but it was, it's just like when you know you're going to lose something, but when you lose it,
it's different.
Even yes, it's touching. It's different. So for me, it was just the realization that, oh, okay, I'm not going to go back, and I didn't know whether or not I was going to be able to go back. So it was like a second time that I was going through that, and so I had to make an adjustment. Now I'm going to stay here. This is going to be home, and so I had to adapt. I, started bringing some of my family members here when I was, once I got to Rochester and started practicing. My younger brother was the first person that managed to come here and join me. But over the years, I've had multiple nieces and nephews who have come and had their kids. It's been a while. And so it took me a long time. But when I had a nucleus of folks here, Rochester became home. And so whenever somebody asks me now, where are you from? I say Rochester. But it's I can't tell you exactly when that happened, but probably within the past 20 years, because at the very beginning, I was just passing through. I was passing through. So, but now this is home, and still have a lot of connections to the Congo. So the way I look at it is that Congo is my home, my homeland, and the U.S. is my adopted home.
Yes.
Yes. So I feel very comfortable, and I'm comfortable here with all of the issues that we all experience
Like,
the issues of racism,
I was going to ask you about that.
anti-immigration, xenophobia, and all of that. We experience that, but it's home,
Mm,
and nobody's going to tell me otherwise.
I
But
love.
yes, and then but the Congo is home. That's where I grew up. I had my
Yeah.
formative years, and that's where my soul is. So yeah.
Yes,
I,
and I love that you're sharing this, because I think that's the beauty of the immigration journey, right? It's forming a new home. It's still having two homes or even more, and
yes.
adding those things and those experiences to our life. And you touched briefly on the struggles, and that was actually my next questions was going to be about challenges and struggles that you have faced, and what can you speak to immigrants and non-immigrants that listen to this podcast, as the impact that those things had in your life, either if it was discrimination, if it was not feeling welcome, if it was some of the challenges that some immigrants can experience.
Yeah, in terms of the challenges, as you said, we touched on some of those.
Yeah.
One is the fact that you don't speak the language, and some of the cultural things are foreign to you.
Yeah.
The fact that you are isolated from family, friends, from the environment that that you can relate to. So those things I would say most of us do experience, some more than others.
Right.
And the issues of being a foreigner. It's interesting because when I came, I really I didn't gravitate to black people being black. I didn't gravitate to white people. Um, I related more to international students. And I thought that I had more in common with them than with either the native
Yeah.
whites or blacks here.
Such
So
an important point. Mm-hmm.
yes, I related more to them because, again, as I said, I thought we had more in common. The interesting thing, and I think this is important really for people who experience some of these foreigner xenophobia and racism and stuff. For me, that was a given. I mean, I knew that
Mm.
these issues were prevalent. Some areas they're clearer than others. They're more open. Others they are kind of a little bit in the background. They're more systemic. They're subtle, but they are there.
Mm.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that. And I, I would say, fortunately for me, that is something that I was aware of, that I acknowledged, but I did not accept. And I want to make a distinction between acknowledging and accepting it. So I acknowledging it actually allowed me to navigate around it.
Mm.
In other words, I mean, if I know, in some area where I was going to make a joke, but
Go ahead.
they're going to be beating me up. I mean, I just don't go there, right? If if I know that,
Yeah.
I'll give you a more a personal example. I mean, if I know in school, for instance, that if I make a mistake, somebody's going to look at it through a different prism. They're going to say, well, this black African is probably not that smart anyway. Whereas if somebody else, um, let's say a white Norwegian, made the same mistake, they would probably look at it differently. They will look at it as maybe he's tired, maybe he just lost current electricity, so maybe that's why he didn't do his homework. I was aware of those kinds of things, and they did happen. But what it allowed me to do in terms of adapting to those kinds of things is just to work hard. You work harder. so that they don't become an issue, because it's going to take a while to change some of these things. I mean, to address some of the, the racism and injustices. But in the meantime, you got to function within that system. So, again, I think the important thing is not to be blind to it, not to let it consume you, and using that as an excuse for all kinds of things,
Yeah.
right? So it shouldn't be used as an excuse, as a crutch. Don't become a victim and relish in being a victim. You know that it's there, but deal with it. When you can do something to change or whatever, but you got to have your eyes open to that. So,
Yes. You
you
can't
know,
stop it. Yes.
and yes, you have to acknowledge it. That's the main thing. And then, as I said, whenever possible, um, you know, try to do something to change.
Yeah.
But adapt. I mean, the system is not going to change overnight, but in the
Adapt.
meantime, you got to make a living.
Thank you so much for those words. I think it's so important, the distinction you're making, and the necessity that we have to survive within the system. So we have to find ways to adapt and continue to move forward.
Yes.
I can not touch on your memoir because I think this is a big part of what I wanted to talk about today. And so, Can't Let Go, A Journey from the Heart of Africa to America. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? When did you start writing it, and what can people find there? What I think the inspiration is clear and is part of what you have been sharing.
Yes, I started writing or thinking about writing seriously. The past few years, we were just talking about issues of uh, immigration, anti-immigration, you know, building walls and xenophobia, and the issues with the Black Lives Matters. I mean, so all of those things were kind of going through my head, and just pushed me to do a little bit of introspection and analyze my own journey and see where I came from, where I am, why I did certain things, why I made certain decisions. So the reason I wrote was, first of all, I wanted to document my history. As I mentioned to you, I do have now a lot of nephews, nieces, some of them born here, some of them really have no idea. I have a nephew. When you ask him, where are you from, he says from Africa, but he was born here. He identifies with Africa, but doesn't know very much about the Congo. So I wanted to write something that they could look at now, they could look at 50 years from now. So
Yes.
documentation was something that was important, and I have to give my wife credit for that, because she had been pushing me for a long time. She said, well, you're the first one here, you're the first one in Rochester, you're the first one this, you have to. So that was a
Amazing.
big
Thank
part
you
of it.
to her.
Yes. But as I said, the final impetus to start writing were all of these internal deliberations that I was going through, that I thought, in a way, they were kind of healing for me, because I was going through my own feelings and trying to um, understand them and understand some of the reasons why I did certain things. And so it was healing for me, and and as I said, healing, cathartic. And at the end, I realized, well, somebody can actually relate to some of these experiences. So to the extent that they can, and to the extent that it may be helpful, that would be a good thing to do. So I decided to let the ink flow, and I started writing about 2 years ago.
I love it. Thank you for sharing it, and thank you for documenting all of those things. I think it's something that we can all find helpful and a support just to hear a different story and something that maybe I'm sure people will connect. What would you say is something that immigrants can find when they're reading your memoir?
Hopefully, they would. There are a lot of messages. Hopefully, that they will get. I mean, because
Yeah.
we've touched on some of the experiences that I've gone through, but at the same time, we have to understand that we come here with under different circumstances. I mean, I
Yes.
came as a student. A lot of the immigrants that are coming in today, especially from the Congo, they're coming in running away from war, especially in the eastern part of the Congo. So
Right.
they're coming because they either running away from war, being persecuted, being oppressed. So those kind of experiences are a little bit different, but the messages are, I
Totally.
think, universal. In other words, you're going to be facing challenges and whatever circumstances brought you here, you're going to be separated from what you know, from your home, from your friends or family, whatever. So trying to, as early as possible, trying to network, trying to
Yes.
find people that you can connect with at some level, so that you have that safe space where you just
Mm.
go and unwind and distress. I think that is extremely important. I
So
also want them to understand, especially the ones that are coming in, that and English is their second or third or fourth language. That it's extremely important. I know people, unfortunately, who've been in this country 3 years, 4 years, 5 years,
yeah.
and when they come to my office, for instance, they have to come with an interpreter. I mean,
Yeah.
that is you need to learn the language, which at the same time allows you to learn a little bit more about the culture so that you can adapt the better. I mean, the sooner the better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying to make that effort to get in. I mean, and at the same time, you try to do that without losing yourself, right? You try to learn the place, learn the language, learn the environment as fast as quickly as you can, and but try to do that at the same time with knowing who you are and not
Yeah.
not losing your identity. And it's a little balancing act, but it
Yeah.
is extremely important to do. I also want them to realize, I mean, this America, with all of its blemishes, I mean, it's a land of opportunity,
Yeah.
and I encourage anybody that I can, that I see, you got to take advantage of the opportunity. I mean, right?
Yeah.
This is called a land of opportunity, because again, I know some who come in. Maybe they've been fighting so hard for so many years to just get here, and then
Mm.
they get here. It's like, oof, I've arrived. And again, years later, they're still doing whatever little job they were doing, because when they were back wherever they came from, and they probably weren't working, or they were making a couple of dollars an hour. They
Yes.
come here, they have a job, maybe they have a car, whatever, and they just
Hmm.
content. And I want them to dream higher, think a little bit better. So those kinds of things hopefully will come through, as when they read the book. They know that, I mean, again, there are all of these struggles that we talked about,
Yeah.
but you have to understand, at least they have to understand that and believe that they belong here. When they come here, you really have to, even if you have to push yourself and keep saying, yes, I belong here, you belong here, because guess what? I mean, except for the Native Americans, we're all immigrants, right? I
We
mean,
are.
we are. So you come in, despite what somebody else may say, we're all immigrants. So have that self-esteem and whatever else, so that you don't really get stuck in this belonging struggle that a lot of
Yeah.
people have. I mean, I belong here. I belong
Yes.
here. So
So
you know,
powerful.
yeah, somebody may have been here a generation ago, but they also came from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And
The
so
parents
in
came
another two or
from.
three generations, as I said, we have some of our nephews and grands and who don't even know where the Congo. They've never been there. So for
Right.
them,
But that's in our blood. It's in our,
it's,
we need to
yes,
acknowledge that.
we need to acknowledge that. Yeah. So
Thank you.
so hopefully some of those themes will come through, and they can relate to it as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And just thinking about how therapeutic can be the process of writing your own story and reading it, and how much you can heal while you're also seeing all the things you have been able to accomplish. Where
Yes,
can we find the book? Is there, and I would like you to share that information, because we want to support, if there's a specific website or in a specific way that if we do it through there, it's better than other ways.
I mean, in terms of the book,
Yes, where can we find it?
yes, I mean, the book is available through Amazon.
Great.
There are some people actually who are getting it through Alibaba. It's available through Barnes and Nobles.
Perfect.
Barnes and Nobles, I mean, so far, I think Amazon is working out the best.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, for you to tell us
Yeah.
what's the best way.
Yes. So, and one of the things that I guess since you talked about support, one of the things that came out of writing the book
Mm.
is that we have a foundation. I had a foundation that my family and I started in 2001. It's called the
Okay.
RTST Foundation. Raphael Tshibangu, Sherry Tshibangu, but it kind of evolved. Um, we did a lot of things for the first I would say 10 years or so, and then over the past few years kind of slowed down to a few scholarships here and there that we were giving. But in the process of writing the book, I kind of realized that um, I'm going to revitalize the foundation, and this is part of what can't let go really means. I don't want to let go of my family, of my community, of my country. I can't let go,
Yeah.
right? So as part of that is the foundation that we are making a big push for this time, and the goal is to build a few diagnostic and urgent care centers in the Congo, a few places that we've already identified. So that's my that's the culmination of writing the book. It was again, the documenting, sharing my experiences, and actually and tracing the path for me as I
Yes.
looking towards retiring and looking at the sunset. So
Right.
RTSD Foundation is it. So
Awesome. So we can look it up.
yes, and rtsdfoundation.org is again we do have a website.
Right.
I may have mentioned I did mention it in the book, so people can look at that as well. So
Perfect. That is so
and that's one of
amazing.
those ways that you can again stay connected. I mean,
Exactly.
you immigrate and you feel like, uh,
How
what
can
can
I
I
give
give?
back?
Yes,
Yeah.
how can I give back? I mean, so that's one of the ways.
That is
Yeah.
an amazing way, and it's a beautiful way to learn. I think, to end this wonderful interview, I think ending with this message of that, exactly what you're saying. We can leave, but that doesn't mean that we're going to let go, right? We can emigrate, we can explore life in a different country, we can form a family somewhere else, but that doesn't mean you're leaving away or you're letting go from your roots, from what
That's right.
from where you come from. That's always going to be with us.
Well, you sound like you read the book already.
I'm gonna get it because I don't know if you know, but we have a book club in this podcast community. So every time I interview authors, we really like to encourage reading their books, and when they're about immigration, even better, because that's our topic. So I'm really excited to get in it and exploring it with other listeners.
Yes, absolutely. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. It's a title that means something to me. That is, a couple of words, but it says a lot about what I was thinking about, what I was going through, what I want to do, and part of it is that I can't let go, not in a negative way, but right now it's just I feel good. I can't let go. It's
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's a struggle that I have here in so many other interviews of like feeling some sort of guilt for letting go, and there's no need to.
There is no need to.
Yeah,
there is no need to.
So thank
you.
Now
I know you read the book because there's a section about guilt in there.
I secretly read it. No, I really want to get it. Raphael, this has been such an honor for me to have you here to listen to part of your story. I know there's so much more, but I'm going to get into the book, and I can't wait for people to listen to this interview. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, I'm the one that should be thanking you for the opportunity. It was really a pleasure talking with you.
Well, let's stay connected.